Yeah.
Hello, Jarl. Thank you for joining 106 Life Factors. We appreciate you. You are alien from Munich, Germany. Can you introduce yourself for us?
Yeah. I'm from Norway. I'm 64 years old. I've been involved with how life experiences, feelings are printing into the body and how it influenced my life in all areas since I was about 17 years through the sports I was doing.
So what type of sports were you involved in?
Yeah, I was one of these on Olympic level in judo.
Oh, judo. Okay.
Yeah. And we had this luck that we had some in the sport institute there in Norway. It was like a national sport institute had some clever psychologist, body psychologist, who was introducing us to this, what feeling is doing with us.
Feelings, as in terms of emotions.
Yeah, feelings, emotion, and how we can see how feeling is getting imprinted, and that your, just excuse me here, I turn off this, how our history, life history is feelings, the body is psychology, to say it like this then.
So you said that you are a native of Norway, and that's where you started your sports, but then you're now living in Munich, Germany, close to the Austrian border. Is it your studies, your education, your work that kind of bring you to start living in Germany?
Yeah, let's say that in already in the 50s, 60s in Norway, we put some questions mark on this established understanding what it means to be a human.
Okay.
Yeah, also this traditional teaching we have in the university, and the definition of being a human.
Mm-hmm.
And then in a way we felt that this, and we can call it reductionistic, dualistic. And these models are hundreds of years old, created in reality by the church sometime in the 1600s. But what it's about, it says that the humans are a machine. That is the base of our public health policy, that we humans are machines. And this model of medicine says that life experiences, your history, how you feel, it's not important. It's not a part of the research model. It's been eliminated away.
Where did you start this research?
In Norway, in Bergen, already in the 50s. I didn't start it in the 50s. I started later.
And so the thesis is humans are seen as machines?
Yeah, that is the old paradigm.
And
that is the, let's say, the human as machine is the US public health philosophy. That is what's underneath. It's called reductionistic understanding.
And so what did you deduct then? Is it, do you agree with that statement that humans are
No,
machines?
we think this was, I think everybody understands we are not machines, that we are just parts. And so we were investigating that humans are nature.
Okay.
That we are nature and one living organism, it's one system.
Okay. So the fact that we understand that, nature is, precedes everything else, and we are not operating as machines. So where do we get our type of automation from then? How have we become who we are today if we're just operating on nature, the biological nature?
Yeah. Let's say exactly this question you asked there is very interesting. We've been studying this for 70 years. And we think that we as in the, how can I say it, if there was a creation one time, then somebody created universe. It's also created something we see in nature which is dominant, which is called self-regulation.
Self-regulation, yes.
Yeah, that's the base of nature. And this means practically that you and I, have some kind of evolutionary history, let's say some million years. And during this million years, we have unconsciously learned to behave, to react in a special way. We have a kind of stereotypes of reacting. It's embedded in us, you know.
But then then this, is it nature then, or is it nurture? Because I think that's what it is. If we are stereotypically reacting and behaving, and our feelings are exhibit in a certain way, then it means that we're socialized into behaving that way. It's not so much the nature, the nature, the actual, what we say, the natural aspect of our being is being manifested. Yes?
Yeah, it depends on how you define nature.
Okay, define it for us.
Yeah, let's say that everything is nature. Everything human, everything in the universe is nature. If you define it like this, we can look into what you try, because what you're really be doing now is what we learn in the school, this dualism, this separation between the mind and the body, different thing. We try to separate us a little bit. We're not talking about one living system.
All right, let's interrogate that a bit, because you use that term dualistic. So let's look at, say, the college experience. A student is in college, and how is it then they're separating the mind from the body? Can you explain that dualistic self that you're talking about, or the dualistic?
It came with a Descartes in the 1640 something, and at that time the church owned the body, was totally in control of the universe in France. Let's say it like this. This is the Western medicine. And he wanted to investigate dead people, but he was not allowed because the body belonged to the church.
Okay.
So he then defined dualism and said the spirit and the mind belong to the church and the body is just parts.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is the base of all the universities in the United States. Dualism. They think that it's the mind that controls the body. 100%.
So what controls the body then?
Yeah, the body controls itself. So through millions of years of evolution, the nervous system, the cognitive functions is very young in reality in our evolution. They are, when I feel in the whole me that something is right, it doesn't exist words for that. Understand what I mean? Something feels 100% right for me. Yes. It doesn't exist. Then I'm tapping into a category of experience that have stored the information about the outer world, about time and mass and everything, and says it's right. This is functions long time before the cognitive functions.
So wait, let's break this down. I wanna keep up here. So I use the example of a university, in a student at a university, And you're saying that the way that the US university system, education system works is that they want to, I mean, they're teaching more of the mind and not the whole parts, which is mind and body. And that the way that the mind stores information, you can correct me here, the way that the mind store information, it is only storing what it is only retrieving what it already stored, and it's not allowed.
Yeah, and the storage is not in the mind, it's in the body, in the organs, underneath. Let's say the nervous system is a kind of integration of a memory system. If we, like you started in the beginning with talking about experiences have developed us.
Right.
So it's so these experiences, if I see it like we are kind of a memory bank of experiences. And this memory bank of experiences has also some kind of reaction to the experience. And some of these reactions are autonomic, they're happening long time. You see a beautiful man and wow, what's happening? It's outside the brain.
So the feelings then, when we're talking about feelings, you're saying the feelings, the reaction that we're having is stereotypical to what we already store in the mind?
No, it's already developed long time before the mind.
It's developed long before the mind. Where would this exist then? Is it exist in just the general society, I guess?
What do you mean?
Where are we pulling these ideas of emotions from?
Let's say in neuropsychology, the last 30 years, they have more or less found out that from the one cell, if they have some kind of development history, they say there is one cell is expanding in the optimal direction, contracting. Okay. And that the cell itself is feeling. So they know defined, and this is it's a kind of a new way of understanding the human, saying that we are one system and everything is feeling. And the mind is just a result of a process in body. We call it homeostatic feelings. What I'm feeling in the mind depends on how stressed I am in the body.
What I'm feeling in the mind depends on how one's feel in the body.
Yeah, how stressed, if I have pain, you know, what's happening in the mind then? If I am depressed, I mean, I getting beaten up. I mean, it's and this is what we call a little bit what kind of stress level capacity do the person have. I look at you, you look like you're pretty tough, that you can you don't fall down in the wind when I look at you.
Yeah.
But other people are fragile. And this fragility, from my tradition, we can look at the person when they lay like a newborn baby, and we can see when it happened, what kind of things happen to this person, this fragility. You know, if we say that you and I are 3,700 million years old, sitting and talking to each other, and it's not much wrong in our genetic after 3,700 million years. What can happen to us if we are mistreating the mothers, if we are not connecting good to the babies? I mean, if we don't have empathy with the mama, with the baby, then we can put the organism in protective structure and maybe stop the child from feeling, and the rest of their life it doesn't feel.
So you're even going as far as to what is happening in the womb, and it's
for sure. We know this already, that the stress capacity and all the ranges of the social behavior can be more or less set in the belly of the mama.
Oh, interesting. So let's talk, you mentioned dualistic, and I think there's also a concept that you use it along with dualistic as reductionist approach.
Yeah.
Why are we talking about it as it relates to just the universities in the US and not just universities in general? Are you saying that?
But since in the US, I'm talking about it in the US, I see this because I have contacts stand for Harvard, Princeton, Yale, in these different places. And I looked at the education program for those who doing with the body, the medical education.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only parts and pharmacia, and it's hopeless for me. It's very bad. And on the other side, I look at the psychology, and I see it's top-down thinking, hypnosis, mentalization. This is top-down from the psychologist, and from the medicine, we're just parts. Feeling doesn't influence us. This is the foundation for the academic world, and this is very dangerous.
And so you're saying, okay, so let's clarify. You're saying that in assessing or evaluating the US structure of education, especially at the university level, they're doing a more top-down approach. And as a result of that, it does what? You said it's dangerous.
The result of that is that, first of all, when it comes to helping people who has problems, they don't look at what really is the problem. They just, in the psychology, they say you're thinking wrong, behave yourself and control your anger. In medicine, they say you need to take these pills. In reality, any reductionistic, dualistic tradition is helpless.
Okay.
And this helplessness becomes a business model.
So with the reductionist approach then, is as if they're segmenting or taking pieces of whatever the problem is to treat it, and not doing a holistic approach to treat the entire human body, the human.
And also the consequence of this reductionism is that they don't look at the social life of the client, the society. What are we doing to the people? How is the living conditions? They don't look at the living conditions. They don't look at the stress happening. They don't look at the a reductionistic tradition needs to produce a lot of sickness, poverty, conflict to survive.
I'm still trying to connect because it's a very important piece that you mentioned about the mind being, separated from the body. I'm still trying to connect this to how then.
Okay, I have an example.
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Imagine that the human, if I was a mediciner, and I will say the human is a sailboat on the open sea.
Mm-hmm.
And then I say that the wind and the weather have no influence on the boat. The sea, wind, and weather doesn't influence the sailboat, I say.
Okay.
Yeah, and what will happen then? It will be a lot of crazy accidents and deaths, and they will try to repair, so there will be a lot of emergency medicine because of this. And this is in what it is today. This is the World Health Organization have this base, this scientific model. I can send you links on this if you'd like to see really.
So basically, the larger systems are not paying attention to the entire human systems, the biological system, in order to treat it at the medical level. If anything, what they're doing is it's not the sum of the entire person that they're looking at. They're looking
that
at
is one thing. Exactly. That is one thing. The other thing, they don't look at how the outer world have influenced and maybe the one I am. They eliminate this evidence in the mathematical research model.
So what we're left with then? So you're saying it's dangerous, and this type of model has been in existence in the US for a very, very long time, especially
Yeah, it's Rockefeller Foundation who really made this big.
Since the 1800s. This system system has been in place. It's medical type system where you treat put a band-aid on something when it happens, and not the holistic approach. So say, for example, can you give an example as it relates to environmental factors like racism? Someone experienced and that a result they experience high levels of stress that leads to high level of anxiety and a result into panic attacks and all those things.
Yeah, let's say this is a very good example.
Okay.
Yeah. If I say racism is just brutal empathy disturbance from the other people.
Yeah.
We don't use the word. We see, what is it? It's a person, a tyrant who is very afraid, and he is dominating and say it's only one reality that is real, and that's me as a white person. You can just fuck off. Yeah, this is, instead of calling it racism, we call it severe empathy disturbance. Because we can be blinded by the racism thing, because this empathy disturbance can be everywhere, not only from the white, it can be from I mean, for me, after 3,700 million years, we all living system on this planet is one organism. We are one living organism on this planet.
Right. But clearly we see that the pseudoscience of race that categorize individuals into color categories.
That is, that's reductionism.
Repeat what you said.
That is reductionism.
Okay.
Race theory is reductionism. And the problem with the race theory, it's time limited. I mean, because let's say 60,000 years ago, you and I had the same mother and father. So this is the problem. They don't look at the history, evolutionary history of the humans. And one of these reasons for that is that some Christians, they don't see the concept of God in the bigger picture, like he created the whole universe. They just say it like he created us with Adam and Eva. Don't think in the whole, from the beginning. So if they go there, and then we have to consider that we all are one living organism on this planet. And
let's look at your theory as it relates to, go back to the athletes. You developed a theory called or a model called vegetative training.
Yeah, let's say
to athletes. Can you describe that for us?
Yeah, let's say now that from childhood, I had to live through pretty hard times. It doesn't exist in reality, good childhood. It's more or less learning to say no and stop.
Right.
Okay, if I have parents which are sensitive to me, let me be allowed to feel I have safety and security, I will develop pretty freely. But still it's hard to be a child in the classroom with the girls, between the girls and the boys, all the mobbing, This creates protective responses in the body. The body is crunching a little bit together, create protection to the outer world. these protections are energy stored since childhood in different people. It's usually finished already when you are maybe 6 months, 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
What's new then is that these tremendous energetic reservoirs can be open and put into growth and freedom and a new body. So we don't talk about trauma anymore, we talk about self-regulation. So with an athlete now, because I've been working in the Premier League, Major League Baseball, NBA, bam, boom, you name it,
Mm-hmm.
we can take an athlete, put him in the basic position, we call it, and then let him regulate these things out, and suddenly he is flying at the total other level.
So what is he regulating? The whole socialization, the experience of his childhood?
Yeah. It's the protective structures all the way from childhood. It can be sorrow, loss, it can be many different things, processes which never was allowed to live. And most of it is suppressed rage.
Because the parents, as you said, would spend more time telling the child to stop, don't do this.
Yeah. I mean, the child wants to have ice cream and getting really angry and they can't have it. Okay. So what does it do? You feel it's tightening the body and it's around the belly, in the hip.
Yeah.
And yeah, or the kid said you have to go to school, to go university, you have to do this. And then he cannot say no. He has to do it because mama says that you have to go there.
Right.
Okay. This is all the time power being put inside in defense against mama, papa.
So wait a second here, because somebody may be listening and say, so if we are to just yield to a child needs.
No, I'm not talking about to yield to the child. I'm talking about the child must be allowed to express his aggression and say he's pissed off because he wants to go to school. And this this expression is enough, and then you have to go to school.
So say for example, as you said, the child wants the ice cream. The child just had dinner. Maybe the parent is concerned about, the child being gluttonous, eating too much. The parent said, no, no ice cream today. The child get into a fit. The parent said, stop. Stop.
No. The parents shouldn't say stop. The parents should say, I fully understand you are angry.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to respect the emotional reaction from the children.
Because the moment the parents is trying to stifle the expression or whatever it is, the anger, the feelings, this now becomes an imprint on the child, and the child continues to go through this process where everybody's saying stop and still not be able to express, and that can limit the skills and the talents and everything else about
it can make them very obedient, and also you, in a way, if you don't express your feelings, then especially rage, then it can start burning inside and creating all kind of immune system. And many women are victims of this because they are not allowed to be loud. Many women are sacrificing themselves in relationships and cannot really, have never learned to say stop. But it's this learn to say stop is a tremendous power inside the body. And when this is open, you get 10 years younger and more crazy.
Wow. So let's look at, because it sounds like you're talking about energy, the negative buildup of energy in the body. And so if you're working with athletes, you're exploring all of these things in order to unleash this negative energy and replace it with something positive. And thus
we just we're just turning the energy in another way.
And give an example of how you can direct the energy.
Yeah, let's say I was in a Premier League, you know this in football in England, and they give me a guy who they bought very cheap, and he hadn't trained for 3 months because he had pain in the knees and the left foot. Okay, so I put him in the position, and then I can see that he has a lot of rage in his body. You see it in the face, it's suppressed rage. Then he started moving. I tell him, start to breathe into your chest and feel. And suddenly, the whole body starts shaking. By itself, autonomic. The same release we see in the other animals when they are stressed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is an autonomic regeneration system. You know, we have one is the protection. We also have the other one, how to get free. Okay, I worked with him for 2 weeks. Injury was gone. He come back in the team. They tested him, and he had the same level of fitness as 4 months ago. Because what happened, the kidneys fell down, the fear, the lung open, all the contact to the spontaneous movements in the body was set new. And then he became man of the match in the 5 of the 8 next matches.
Wow.
We continue, he became captain in the team and national, bam, bam, bam. And this happening to everybody we work with.
So this is interesting. So this, I guess we can frame this as like a biomedical, biosocial medical model.
Yeah, we can call it a kind of self-regulated body psychology.
Okay. So I don't want you to give up all your secrets, but this, say, for example, this athlete that you came across, do you start talking to them about childhood? You do in terms of, do they engage on a psychological level or more on a...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's both. It's what's happening is that when he lay down, I can see when through observing the distribution of body fat on the body. Where is it put? Because we have a baby has the body fat, the little boy, it's all has a normal distribution. Then I can see, okay, something happened when you were 7 years old. But I don't say this. I say to him, what is your problems? How does it feel? And then he start moving. And then he's coming up with some deeper problems himself. I don't guide him. And then this comes up. And then sometimes he also have the same reaction in the body to this shit happening. He was mobbed in the school. And he felt then this memory coming up, and it's so strong, and it reacts the same in the body. Like it's a horror movie playing again.
Yeah.
But with that. And then when he's laying in this position, he's conscious. Last time when this happened, all this fear reaction is unconscious. So then through them, I can tell him, feel your shoulders. What did you do with your shoulders? Yeah, they was like this. And they still was like this. And then suddenly he integrates the experience as a little child, boy, whatever, and the body reprograms new. The brain kicks in and says, we don't need this anymore.
Interesting. Does, in terms of that approach, what are some of the strategies that you give to, say, an athlete then that is under your training?
Yeah.
That when
what I say to them, yeah, I say to the athletes, you have to learn to be your own boss. You are the boss of your life. The second, I measure you in how good you are at saying no to the coaches.
Okay.
So and this is the model we have in Norway, like the athletes have to feel his own comfort zone, what working for him, because everybody is different.
Yeah.
So he has then to be in the center of his own development and become his own coach and take information from me, you, and use it if it's useful for him. So I try to make them independent of me.
So let's look at it this way. So I'm Jamaican, and Jamaicans tend to be famous for producing some of the world-class athletes, especially when it comes to track, 100-meter, 200 meter, 400 meters. And they dominate in that way. And our culture, from especially from my experiences, we tend to be very outspoken in any
And this is
situation.
very important. I think Jamaicans are good at saying stop when it's enough.
Exactly. So are you saying then that could be where we're gathering some of our energy from, where we don't allow ourselves to be pushed around, we know when to say no and walk away, stuff like that?
Yeah, what you in reality is talking about is the deep biological functionality. The core of the human system is the ability to say stop when it's enough.
Let's fast forward from the childhood stage then. Say you have a child who, the parents allow freedom of expression. There's a free range in terms of parenting. The child, will develop in probably all the normal ranges and depth. But then by the time they get into, say, high school or college, they started experiencing, could be racism, sexism, isolation, all these type of things. The child have this, young man or young woman have the ability and the talent to be an athlete or a biologist or any area of life that they can excel in. But because of the experiences at this life stage,
because of the reductionism in the universities.
right. How then would this be different in how you treat? Because it sounds as if you're starting from childhood. But if in this case, this child was exposed to all the normal ranges, then, for example, but then outside of the home structure, they encounter all sorts of, vile things that we know that happen in the world, racism, discrimination, just being powerless against a system. What is it that you can do for this person?
Let's say that if this boy is like you, who has the ability to say stop when it's bullshit, then he can survive pretty good in these fascistic academic structures, because in reality it's fascism. It's you're just a product. You're not a living system. So of course, but with the method we can restore normality in you, feeling relaxed in like 35 minutes. We do this in Tour de France. The riders 4, 5, 6 hours on the bike, they lay down and start doing the method, and like after 40 minutes they're totally relaxed and they are starting to feel joy and everything. But imagine you go into the university, you go into an institution where feelings not are allowed, where you're an instrument in reality of just repeating what's been said. You're not allowed to reflect.
Right.
You cannot challenge your professors, because then they kick you out.
Exactly.
So that's what we have. That is the danger.
Well, now we're talking about a broad systems that that needs to be revolutionized in such a way that probably in our generation we will not see any change for that to happen. But that's that's a description of the U.S. Educational system. Now, you talk about self-regulation, the importance of self regulation. What is the difference between in terms of how you conceptualize what you're doing? What's the difference between self-regulation and self-control?
It's the same.
So one should control themselves in these.
No. I mean, if the organism is not, we are animals, to say it like that, but we are on two legs, and this is a little bit problems because we are not adapted to being on two legs. In reality, the whole system is in 80% power because we're standing up. But to express my feelings violently, I mean, loud and think, is good self-control and good self-regulation. And depends, if I had the childhood, I see this with some players from South America. Some of them have lived almost on the street very freely. Others come from rich families where they live inside around the house is a wall, you know.
Yeah.
And they have to invite people. They have no formalized meeting areas.
Right.
Yeah. And then I see these guys who's been living in the more poor areas where there's more, you have to be like you are, and you will always be in maybe a little bit more risky, more tougher situation. I see them going very far in many sports.
That's interesting. And so people,
yeah, because they have learned to handle stress in early age, and they can, you know, and when something really stressing happening outside, they just sit there and relax and say, what's the problem? But the others who are inside this very protective
structure,
rich upper class system, they are so weak.
So people like Ronaldo, Messi, who grew up in poverty in their communities, and even the late Maradona, who you know, kind of revolutionized the game of soccer. Would you say those people, based on their background experiences, that's why they're the greats, because they are able to handle this, the poverty and just the harsher things that an
for sure. Yeah, for sure. Because they are had a life with challenges, which is not just you know, if you reach, it's two different lives. So they had to be accepted between the boys. They have to fight. They have to be out there and live in the stress, and they survived it, and they got stronger. They are the real people also with can have a good understanding of how difficult it is for people in the real life. If you haven't been in the poor and in these areas, it's maybe not so easy to understand what's going on, what is really, what people doing, how they survive. And then, like we have now in the United States, it's only the super elite, the rich, sitting and controlling everything, who never, they don't know what the price to buy a liter of milk is. You know, they never had any problems. And they are making the system, then it's not good.
So if you're talking to a group of coaches in the US, American coaches in the US, who are, you know, training, say, even at the high school stage, or even for preparing people to going into professional sports, whether it's basketball, soccer, you know, American type football, what would you say to them? Because
I would say to them that they are not qualified to be a coach if they cannot tune into the player like the mother tuned into the baby.
And so if you're tasked with training them, what's the first start there? What would you,
it's starting with feeling them and understanding them and talking about what's important. And in the most of my top athletes, it's not the sport itself which is the problem. It's what's happening in the family with the things outside, how they feel, what is the pressure. We have to go into the deeper feeling of the person, what's really is the challenges, and be accepted that these feelings, this is, and I have to be a kind of a reservoir of understanding all kind of feelings, so I can tell this guy and that what you're feeling is right, because you can't feel wrong.
So the US is built on a democratic type of system, free market enterprise, capitalism, and all those type of thing. Every, individual agency, to each his own, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, those type of thing. So if you're recruiting an athlete, and you're recruiting just based on their talents, for the coach to invest themselves in such a way into the primary area of this athlete in terms of family, community, understanding, all the things that are the structure that this person is coming from, then it seems as if it takes away some of that individuality, some of that free enterprise and that agency. I mean, that's the approach. And then, said, well, what's the point paying you millions of dollars if we have to do all these things? So the person would be probably left on their own to kind of hire people to help them figure stuff out versus the coach doing all of that. What would you say about that?
No, what I was saying is that the coach needs to have a very deep level of empathy. If you don't have it, you don't understand what the fuck he's doing. He doesn't understand what is he really doing with the athletes, because they are not machines. If you can't really tune into the athletes and give the feeling that I'm caring about you, there will be a lot of injuries, and the investor will be fooled, and there will be you have to buy new things all the time. That's what they're doing now. They are fooling the investors. Massive hurdle.
So we watch on TV where, like, for example, the Premier League, maybe prior to the last 2 years or so, I mean, before the last 2 years, where, Manchester United, Manchester City, Leeds, all these type of teams, for example, will be playing, and you have people in the stadium, fans that are chanting all sorts of sexist and racist things towards athletes. And these athletes have to play under these type of conditions. So that's a set of trauma that they have to deal with. I don't know if you've come across where, coaches are in kind of a bind and say, what can we do to help our athletes? Because this is affecting how their level of playing.
Of course, this is, if an athlete can be totally independent and strong and owns his own reality and can separate the reality of others, he can stand in a lot of shit.
He can withstand it.
Yeah, he can withstand it, and it just go, like water in the sun, it just evaporates if it's strong enough. You see, and this is one way we have to go. At the same time, we have to not talking about racism, we're talking about suppressed hate and aggression being expressed in the stadium.
Yes.
That's what it is. Maybe we have to organize rage things for the fans so they can be allowed to express the hate and rage they have in a controlled situation. We're doing this in Germany. The kids are allowed to symbolically kill their fathers and mothers twice a week.
Okay, hold on there.
Yeah. symbolically they are angry at mama, and they are allowed symbolically, not with mama, but with the fact to really put this out,
That
and
is,
then it's gone.
what if some may consider that to be a dangerous type of simulation? So you're saying that in Germany, you get a group of kids who have these pent-up anger, and you kind of create a simulation for them to literally, get rid of their pain.
Express it.
Express.
Yeah. And I tell you what happened. I did this in one place in one team in Premier League with the kids of one of the bosses.
Mhm.
They went out and went totally crazy. And the father was standing there in shock and say, "What's going on?" Because I asked one of the kids, "You want to kill your father?" "Yes," he said, "yes." And then he went out and we did it symbolically. And then they came in again and hugged the father and saying, "We love you."
That's pretty interesting. So let's go back to the fans. You're saying the fans should be given a chance to express themselves through rage before a game? And
Yeah,
who
but they
will
do
be
it.
expressing
They do it in the game.
But what about the happy?
They do it in the game. It's the only place where in our society is allowed to be crazy and scream. I've been to this football team and it's totally crazy. But people are expressing their suppressed self-regulation in these stadiums. It can be done the more targeted. And if I'm as an athlete do understand this, then I can smile and say, "Just call me a fucking asshole. I fully understand you."
So we have to look at both sides, though. The recipient of these rage, or should I say the person who become victimized then by this rage.
Yeah,
How do
he
we,
only become victimized if he feel he is victimized.
if you feel victimized?
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's the
are you
person
saying
himself have to feel it.
both sides have to be working on themselves?
I see the athlete needs to be strong enough and wise enough to understand it's only suppressed rage and empathy disturbance coming free now. And he's paid some money to express it here. Okay, so just let the show go on and let it come. I have some athletes from Chile, from Africa, who understands this, and after they understood it, they didn't feel any racism anymore. They just feel power because they felt, "I'm finished with this. You still have this controlling your fucking life. I'm free of this. I put it in my power. I can be alive. I can connect with people on a deep level. What are you doing? You need to release it. Okay, do it here. You paid for it." They think like this, and they smile when it's happening because they feel the good energy from this. They take it. They take the energy instead and make it for them.
Do you work equally with female? And
Yeah, the same.
the same. And is
Yeah.
it always in sports? Have you ever had to do like a corporate type of training with even leaders? Because sometimes people, leaders
Yeah. I work with royal families in Europe and other places with billionaires, and they're all humans. It doesn't matter what you call them.
Yeah.
I work with sexual abuse and with a lot of scary things. Not only the athletes. The main reason I've been doing with the athletes is that you have, let's say, the theoretical and practical foundation for sports science. It's fallen a long time ago. And the same in all 99% of all the universities in the States. So if I'm doing this in the sports and suddenly in the team, we don't have any medical doctor anymore, we don't touch the players anymore, we can heal the injuries 90% time faster. Then the superstars in the States says, "Okay, I don't need this reductionism anymore. I think this is the why we work there, because this is the way maybe to change the system, to get empathy and feeling and get the real faster through the superstar, faster get the change. It will not happen in the university, because all the professors, they are too shameful to change.
They're too shameful to change.
Yeah, because I can say it when they're teaching the inner logic of a little toe, and this is independent of everything, it's totally bullshit. We don't need it. But it's really in the microscope, and you look in there, even the genetic. I have a friend who's doing genetic in Switzerland. It's called epigenetic.
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking at the microscope, and in the end he said, fucking, it's the relation to my father that made this programming. The genes are experience conditioned through feeling.
So this now comes to, let's talk about natural conduct. The natural conduct comes through that self-regulation.
Yeah, everything is natural. Rage is natural. Love is natural. Everything is in the concept of a human organism. Because when you say natural conduct, it's like you try to divide it a little bit.
Well,
It's in the language. We don't have a good language to really talk all the time, not dualistic or reductionistic.
so here's a concern. We have so far gone with how our society, in terms of the evolution that you talk about, and we've been exposed so much to so many different things from the moment the child leaves the womb. Within 6 months, it's like the exposure is so high to all sorts of different things. So in a sense, it's as if we can say there's some, humans now is almost hybrid in some way. There's nothing natural about us so much.
Everything is natural, but if it's long time useful is another thing. I think that if we look at the indigenous people who living in like nature,
Yeah.
and we look at living in Munich, or it's not the optimal condition for the human in reality to live in the cities.
But they do, and that's the concern of, it's as if you really cannot mend completely or do away with some of the traumatic conditions that we have.
You can do a lot. We can do a lot about it now. We don't see it longer as a sickness or trauma. We see it as a reservoir of future growth now.
Everything is tied to feeling. Every experience is tied to action, especially for the Gen Z population. Those kids born 2000 and now they are, in the 20s, 21, 18. And so let's look at that group. And everything about them is tied to something, to an action, you shout at me, and because you shout at me, this is what is happening to me, even though the volume is not what anyone would rate as shouting. And everything become heightened in so many different ways. How do you can even apply this approach with this generation when they're even creating or and heightening, and kind of heightening the feelings meter then of, I am anxious because you did this to me. I feel this way because it's not so much what the parents did, it's coupled with that, but they go through their entire lives with all these different connections to their experiences that is causing them not to feel good, but to feel worse about life. And so they have 4 or 5 different categories of mental illness. How do you treat this generation?
First of all, it's not a mental illness, it's a self-regulation to survive. It's a self-regulation strategy. Yeah, no, it's not mental health anymore, it's self-regulation strategies.
But we know that, especially in the US or in, you know,
yeah, but it would be, the brain is never getting sick from itself. It comes, the feelings from the body with a lot of stress is fucking the brain. So it's not a mental sickness, it's a self-regulation thing. And if we understand it as self-regulation, then we can do something about it. If we call it a mental sickness, we will start with talking to the brain and giving pills and all the shit and make it much worse.
Which is what is happening.
That's what's happened. And that is reductionism and dualism. It's creating the problems because they don't feel. And then they try to repair the problem with the same method they created the problem. And this is the foundation for suppressive societies. This whole, you make a fascistic society by destroying self-regulation.
Interesting. Yeah. We're coming to the very end here, Jarl. I appreciate all the information. Hopefully we can just decipher it. It's very deep stuff. This is very deep stuff. Have you ever been invited to the US to talk to, you know, talk on those topics, those areas?
Yeah, I did some years ago, a little bit around. I've been doing some work in Mexico, South America, a little bit. So, but during this COVID, you know, United States were closed for Europe for 2.5 years.
Yes, yes. So this is something that, you know, you can take to the US to see how receptive they are to your theory, because it seems as if, you know, you've been, you know, your access is far reaching across Europe, as you mentioned, working with athletes. Is there any area that we did not touch on that is critical to this conversation that you want to share?
No, I think you have understand the basic thing, that is self-regulation is why Jamaica was so good, because they could say stop when it's enough.
It's enough.
The future is about self-regulation, and the evidence of feeling.
Evidence of feeling.
Yeah. So if you talk to the medical doctor and they talk about evidence-based medicine, you ask them about the evidence of feeling and the evidence of self-regulation.
Okay.
The evidence of self-regulation is what brought us from 0 to here. And it's not a part of medicine. It's not a part of the academic world. Feeling. And let's say reductionism means in reality fear. To keep control, they have to make scary scenarios for we to listen to them, because they're helpless. They never talk about health in reality. They talk about sickness and death.
So if you attack if you actually discuss the vile things that exist or that is happening in society in a way to understand the feelings of people, especially those who have experienced some of these vile things, you're saying that's where some of the healing will start, and people will be able to understand better how to self-regulate. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the world can survive if this ability to say no is be given the conditions, and that we open the self-regulation. And this method is self-regulated based, experience orientated. So when you are better at saying no, and this, when people learn this, then the society can change.
But so yeah, and we know that we're in a society where the pseudo idea of freedom of speech and it's what's
No, we say we redefine freedom as having a good self-regulation.
Ah.
Yeah, we don't talk about freedom anymore because it's a personal thing. Do you feel good in your self-regulation? So how does the society make it possible for me to develop my self-regulation?
Yeah.
Then we can talk about, I will send you one translated page where one of the biggest scientists in Germany is analyzing Orwell's story. You heard about Orwell?
Could you repeat the word?
Orwell.
Not sure. Explain.
No, but Orwell is talking about what will happen if the society is based on reductionism and dualism.
Oh, Orwell, Orwell, Orwell.
Yeah, Orwell, yeah.
Got it, yeah.
Yeah, and in Germany, one famous medical and psychological scientist from the same kind of tradition I am, he took the concept of Orwell and put it into the the understanding of the human and what's happening if we destroy self-regulation. And he says this is the base of Nazism. You know, we tried in reality in the Nuremberg processes. The worst of all the Nazis were the doctors. They were doing the most insane thing with the people. Wow. They were the worst. The Americans came and looked what the fuck is happening. They couldn't believe it, what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
They had a process only against the doctors. And they asked, what kind of model do you have, an understanding of the humans that makes this possible?
Mm-hmm.
That is the biomedical research model.
Yeah.
Okay, they killed a few. They took some of these scientists to the United States to help with the army program. And they let 50,000 doctors continue to practice in Germany with the same model that created the Nazis.
Is it like getting rid of people that were considered to be feeble or disabled? Is that what you mentioned?
Yeah, it's reductionism. You're reducing the world every day to something that is only you in the end. You're killing everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we made the human basic laws, the Geneva Conventions in the late 40s, 49.
Yeah.
And they were made so it should not be possible to have a kind of suppressive, empathy disturbed society growing. It was a contradiction. They want to stop the effect of the biomedical model with the human basic law.
So are you talking also, does the practice of eugenics configure into any of this?
Yeah, that's the biomedical model.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they teach in the university. It's the base of all the teaching in psychology, medicine, philosophy, everywhere.
Interesting.
And it's like they don't understand that if they continue with this, they can risk killing us all.
They will risk killing?
They can destroy everybody on the planet if we continue with this kind of
approach,
academic education.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's very dangerous. And like here in Europe now, people are losing faith in the medical doctors, in medicine, in the bureaucracy, in the government. It's like people are starting to putting the pieces together.
Right.
Yeah.
In terms of the treatment model where, it's as if they're not attending to, the holistic self, as you mentioned. It's more where you're treating, using medication.
Yeah.
And
You're using medication to suppress feelings. And now they have finally said it officially that it's a clear connection between the medical knowledge and the need for more wars and conflicts. They see the medical science is without this theory, there would be no war.
Without could you repeat that?
Without the biomedical model,
there would be
as a basic understanding of being a human, there will not be many wars.
Okay.
Because the biomedical model is a war against everything alive. The killing cell, it's all about killing. And and underneath is the big chemical companies, pharmacia, weapon industry, who have captures. They have captured all the regulatory systems, but this coming up now everywhere. And in the way, what comes after this shit, the knowledge to self-regulate and build a new body, and it exists. So we don't go into emptiness, we go into something much richer.
Much richer. Jarl, this is an important conversation, and we could go on and on with it. Very interesting topic. And hopefully you do get to visit the US at some point and we can connect again and talk more on this. But I believe that the theory is really something that many coaches, as you said, in terms of the vegetative training and the self-regulation and all these type of natural conducts that you mentioned, that segue that find itself into all the other systems and structure that we live within our society. It's an interesting take, and I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So if you have any question, we can do a second chapter.
Definitely.
No, all right. Have a good night, then.
Take care. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Take care.